Hi everyone, welcome to this Progate On Air session on fast tracking your tech careers with Ronak Sakhuja, a former Gold MSP and an SDE-I at Microsoft. He's also been an intern at Microsoft last year and also had an internship offer from SAP Labs from his campus. So, hi, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for the introduction, Simran.
Yeah. So, did I miss something? I think I missed Hack the North, and he's also attended over 30 hackathons in his 4 years of college and has won a specific title in Hack the North Canada. It was for Microsoft
Microsoft
Technology. Yeah.
AI prize, yes.
So thank you. Thanks a lot for joining us for the session today.
Thank you so much.
Um, So we're going to be mainly discussing internship interviews and tips and tricks to prepare for them and how to get started. So when would be an ideal time for one to get started to prepare for their internship?
Okay. So internship interviews happen like in the starting of your third year. So if you're sitting for on-campus internships, you probably will be having your interviews at the end of July or probably the first week of August. I think there would be a change in this timing because of COVID at the moment, but should not be later than August. So actually the preparation begins right from the moment you enter college. So everything you do at the end, it will benefit you when you sit for your interviews. So the even basic C++ that you study in your first semester probably, even that will help you out, because the several questions that are asked on pointers and that very basic stuff in interviews that you often ignore at the time of preparing for your interview. So the preparation starts right from the moment you enter college, or can even start earlier if you choose to. But this does not at any point mean that if you are not doing anything from the start of your college, you cannot crack interviews. So there's a set of internship specific preparation that is required, which covers topics like DS and algo and operating systems, which you should start approximately 5 to 6 months before your interviews. And other than that, there are projects that you need to do for your resume, which should start right from your first year or second year, whenever you feel like. So it takes time to develop a whole project, to learn the skills, and these are all the things that are there on the resume and have an impact on the interview. So there's not only the preparation that you do, sit down and study for 5 to 6 hours. There are various things that you have to do in your life which will help you out in your interview.
Like profile building starts from the get-go. That's true.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So considering that interview preparation, mostly people think it's only the DS algo and the core CS subjects, as you mentioned. The core CS subjects also differ from company to company for various companies on and off campus. So, should one focus on doing a specific set of core CS subjects before their fifth semester, or should they just focus on the subjects that they have in syllabus while making sure they're very good with DS and algo?
All right. So there are certain subjects that are very important in terms of interview. The first being database systems, asked very frequently. I think I think every company will go into at least one question for database systems. And the book I would recommend is there's a book named by an author called Navate, Database Systems by Navate. That is the book I use, and I think everybody I know used to study for these interviews. And I think if you're a CS student, you might have studied in your curriculum as well. But if you're not a CS student, I would recommend there are various YouTube channels which are mainly for gate preparation for databases, but you can actually use them to have a quick understanding of all the topics. So the first most important topic is database systems. If you are interviewing for a fintech company like American Express or Goldman Sachs, they will definitely ask questions on database systems, because the primarily work is
Data
data
management,
management
data analysis.
and data analytics. Next is operating systems. It's a very difficult subject, easy to understand, everything is fine, but the questions that they can ask can be tricky. So you need to go through some gate MCQ types questions. You need to understand every topic from the core. Like if you just read the definitions and you are thorough with the definitions, that would not help. You have to have a understanding of every topic that you are doing. So there's another subject called computer networks, which you can also leave. It is not that important because companies do not prefer asking questions. It might be a very rare chance that a company has asked questions in computer networks. So
So the
these
two
are
core
the
CS subjects, OS, like operating systems and database management systems, is something that everybody should cover before the sit interviews.
So for all those who are preparing for on-campus interviews in July, August, I would recommend that you do not leave it for the end. You just spare some time every day, every week for these subjects, because if you have these subjects at the end, you will be in a lot of pressure, because you will have to revise all the preparation for DS Algo that you've been doing, and then have this pressure of doing these subjects. Okay, one last important subject I missed. Oops, very important. So there are students who are doing either C++ or Java mainly. So for all the Java people, they are they go into Java specific OOPs like JVM, understanding the concept how Java works. For C++, they go into pointers and memory management in both Java and C++. So these are so if you go online on Geeks for Geeks and like search for questions on OOPS in Java and OOPS in C++, you will find MCQs. So just make sure to do these questions online. Try to go through at least all of them, and then go for your interview.
That's very sound advice for somebody like me who's going to go into their third year and is preparing. I mean, I was pretty confused. Thank you. So there's also this thing that a lot of us are confused when we have our summers just before, like the summer this year has extended and it's not exactly summer, but when we have our summers just before the fifth semester, there's this dilemma that everybody faces, that should they focus on personal projects and preparations, or do internships in their after their second year. So
All right. So the answer for this would be pretty simple. So if you're from a tier one or tier two college, which have fairly good companies coming in their on-campus placements, I would recommend them to not do any internships after the second year and study properly so that they can crack a company in the first week. So for my college, DTU and all the IITs, NITs out there who have good companies coming into their colleges in August, they should focus completely on studying for those interviews. And for any college beyond that, for all those colleges who do not have on-campus placements, who only rely on off-campus opportunities, for them, I would recommend to do their internships and personal projects in the summer vacation, because they have nothing to look forward to immediately after the vacation. So usually off-campus opportunities start coming in December or January and so on. So after your summer vacation, you have enough time to get back on track and study DS Algo and have that uh, interview preparation going on.
okay. As you said, a lot of what we project at the end in the interviews depends on how what we've done since the very beginning of college. A lot of us step into college not having any prior programming experience, considering the JE culture in our country. So, what a lot of people are then confused, because nowadays getting started, there is a fad of sorts that I have personally noticed, that a lot of people go into learning machine learning and AI, all just big words. They just start off from that. And then there are some people who are like, should we go into development? So, what should first years do when they step into college?
So if you have zero knowledge about coding and computers, my first recommendation would be to have one language picked up, maybe C++ or Java. I would not recommend Python to a beginner. So have one language, C++ and or Java, and go deep into it, understand how it works, understanding how the memory works, having a core understanding of everything, when you just, having a program on your screen and you execute it, what actually is happening behind the scene. You should have a fairly good understanding of that. So once you have that, it is very easy to switch to a new language or a new framework, or do development, because once you have that understanding how code works, because all so even if you go for development, right, if you go for say web development, you have JavaScript, and if you have an understanding of how C++ works, it is very easy for you to understand how JavaScript is
Understand
working, right?
JavaScript. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing Android development, so it is like you have a fairly good understanding of Java, and you can go to Android. So it's very easy for you to understand newer things. So once you have that very core understanding, only then go for further learning. First, if you want to do machine learning, or you want to go for development. Machine learning is something I would say is still a fad among most. Uh, like if there are 1,000 people coming to me and saying they know machine learning, I'm pretty sure only 10 out of those 1,000 would be the ones who are actually doing machine learning. Many of the people know how to run a model using imported libraries, but still do not have any idea about what is happening behind the scenes in those libraries. So when you sit in interviews and you have those machine learning projects on your resume, the interviewer assumes that you have the right knowledge for those projects, and he freely asks questions about those machine learning models that you have used, and most of the students are do not have any answer for those, because all they know is how to import a library and use the function to call that machine learning algorithm. So if you're going into machine learning, I would recommend that understand how the working of it properly, understand it from the base, not just a high level understanding of the topics. And the other way is development. And I find development pretty interesting. And even from my projects, you might have seen, I have a lot of varied projects. I have in Android development, I have done in web development, front end, back end, probably everything I've tried out. So uh, development, I would say you can go anywhere. The limits are endless, and but everything has to be done after you are done with your basic C++ and Java thing. And of course, side by side, you have to do DS and Algo if you want to. If you have those companies in mind for those interviews that you're preparing for.
There is a very common question that comes up when we talk about that. There are people who are they are very good with development, or maybe they've done a lot of development, have experience even before they started college, and they don't particularly like the competitive programming sphere. So that question always arises, that why do companies always focus on competitive programming as a primary way of screening? So like, if you have any insights on that point.
So I was one of those kids who had hated competitive programming, and I probably never did competitive until my second year. I think it was till in January of my second year I started with programming, because I had this thing in mind that companies are going to come in the next 6 months, and I have to crack a internship offer. So if you do not have any on-campus opportunities, and you're only aiming for off-campus opportunities, if you want to go for a big company like for some Microsoft or Amazon, I would say that you have to study DS and Algo. Study it as as you're studying for JE, right? What you study in JE is of no use when you're in college. So study it like that. Get into it. Leave everything aside for that time and do it. And if you don't want to do, even that is a very good option. A very close friend of mine is working as a React developer in Facebook, and he did not do any this competitive development or anything DS algo of sorts. All he did was what interested him. He was into React development, and he followed his passion. He used to tweet a lot, and he found people who liked his work. He used to be everything was open source. And so once he found the right set of people who liked his work, he started talking to them regularly. And once they had this connection built up, he used to attend conferences in around the world, in which these React developers come from these big companies, Facebook, Microsoft. And once his network was established, one day he was given an offer from one of those connections, and then he joined the company. So no knowledge of DS and Algo. Obviously, he had knowledge, he had the understanding, but he never did competitive like on HackerRank or Fortchef or any other website. So it is not important. But if you're aiming for on-campus interviews, I think it is one of the most important thing to do.
So, competitive definitely matters. I mean, one case that you've shared must be a one among 1,000 or maybe a 10,000 that it happens somebody gets, and he must have a level of expertise in that area that I think we can't fathom for somebody to have at a second year stage where we're talking at right now.
Yes,
So, I
not
mean,
at the second year stage, but it may help you land up internship in a good startup where you have good work in a funded startup probably. So it's not that you have no life if you do not like competitive programming and do not want to do it. There are other ways out. If you go into development probably there are options. But if you want to play on a safer side, if you have on-campus opportunities available, DS and Algo competitive, uh, both are very different. DS and Algo and competitive. I must say I would elaborate on that as well. You have to focus on DS Algo if you are aiming for on-campus opportunities, and or if you want to play safe. So
so the
yeah,
difference that you've
coming
mentioned is
yeah
mainly
coming
between interview coding and competitive coding. So, like,
yes.
what is the difference?
So I have given two interviews up till now in my life. One is SAP and one is Microsoft, and cracked both of them. So according to my experience, I have never opened CodeChef or CodeForces or any such sort of website. Uh, I feel these are very difficult for my level. I have not done competitive of that level ever in my life. The only thing that I have done is understand data structures and how to use them in various scenarios. So if you go to interviewbit.com, this was the website I followed for my preparation, and you will find a certain set of questions which are of a very similar type. So once you start solving questions, you'll understand that okay, so there's a regular pattern you'll observe that okay, a portion of arrays will be like this. A portion of there cannot be like for trees. I would say there are very certain set of questions that can be asked in an interview. I mean, it's very difficult to deviate from those set of questions. And if you do them all, probably you will have confidence in any question that comes on tree in your interview. Whereas if you go to competitive coding, I think they're more focused on mathematics and algorithms you try to devise. So that is not the case in interviews. They have a total different strategy. Questions are repeated in the interviews. So if you have a company, if you have a interview for Microsoft, I would recommend you go to Geeks for Geeks and open the there's a previously asked questions section in Geeks for Geeks where you get all the questions asked by a particular company. You open that section and you will find a list of around 200 questions, and it's not a big deal to just go through from those questions. Like you just go on them, you read, you understand. If you think you can code it without seeing their code, just leave it aside. And if you think there's slightly problem in you, like there's a slight problem in thinking about that question, and you feel like you need to code it once, you just read the code and solve it on your own. So you'll understand that the pattern is same. There are repetitions, and you need not go beyond a certain level of difficulty for interview questions. So just focus on that level. Don't go beyond that if your only intention is to crack interviews. This is the primary difference that I found in competitive coding and preparing for interviews.
All right. So Geeks for Geeks would be one platform that would be good for looking at questions and practicing maybe. What are other platforms, as you also mentioned, interview bit? So, like, what are the main advantages of each of these platforms, and at what stages should one go to these platforms?
All right. So Geeks for Geeks is the one resource which is abundant. Like it has so many questions and articles around every topic, uh, that you usually get lost on that platform, that where to start from, where to stop, and how many questions should one do. So I would always say start from the very easy questions from Geek for Geek. So there's a section in which you have, each data structure segregated. So you start from arrays, strings, linked list, and so on, and you do some basic questions from Geeks for Geeks. Secondly, after that, once you feel that you have a understanding, fairly good understanding of the topics, if you're doing linked list, you have an understanding of how it is working, and you're able to solve. Then move on to interviewbit.com. The most benefiting factor of interviewbit.com, I feel, is the test cases are amazing. Like even on a simple question, I'm pretty sure everybody likes a question where you have to reverse a number. You'll probably not be able to pass all test cases in one go. And if you do it on Geeks for Geeks or you do it yourself, probably you will say this is a very easy question and I can do it. But there are certain test cases where you have a zero at the end probably, and the number is negative, and all those cases you have to handle. You So interviewbit.com prepares for you for those special test cases, and I think they have very good segregation of topics, and you will find probably all good questions under one hood, which are previously asked in companies. So, like if you're sitting for interviews, I would say interviewbit.com is the one site you should have done completely. And even if you have not done Geeks for Geeks, that doesn't count. But interviewbit.com, you should have been thorough in it.
I think there's some internet issue. Let me just check if it's on
These
my
are the
end.
two resources I would.
Oh, okay. Um,
Hello. Any issue?
I think there was some internet issues
Hello.
on my end. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's better now. Um, no, I think it's stuck again. Could you just check your network once, please?
Yeah. Should I repeat? I think it's good now.
Yeah, I think it's better. No, I think I caught almost most of
Yeah.
it. Just the ending where you were specifying how we should do interview bit should be a priority over even doing gigs for gigs. I think after
Yes.
that is where I lost
Yes.
you. Yeah, so I think
Yes.
we covered everything. So we have the live chat saying lead code and placement saga. Ooh, all right. Okay, yeah. So interview bit and lead code are again two different platforms that everybody is
I
always
think,
talking about.
yeah, I think InterviewBit is a subset of LeetCode, what I feel so. So if
Mhm.
you're looking for a very particular set of questions, InterviewBit is the go-to. And after doing InterviewBit, you can proceed to LeetCode. LeetCode has a vast variety of questions which are really good. So yeah.
Apart from the coding part of it and the core CS part of it, all of this comes in the studying bit of it. There are projects that are important. How does one build their resume when applying for any interview or any internship? Resume, I feel like, plays a significant role. Would you say that?
Yes, it totally does. And I think each and every activity that you do in your college life counts when you sit in an interview. So, for some, must say that the very student partner programs, like for some Microsoft Student Partner Program, and like I think every company has started their own, student partner programs or some sort of it. Um, it was very strange that even they have an impact in the interview. People think that everybody is doing it. Why should I join? And since everybody is doing it, it will not benefit me in the interview. But it is totally wrong. So I'll come why it benefited me in my interview. And so coming to the projects first, I would recommend that going to hackathons help you build your projects. So I have I never sit down with an intention to make a project. You never start with a project. Okay, now I have to make a project because I want it on my resume. You never started off like that. You need some sort of motivation. Why are you building it? What problem will it solve? So always think about some general, problem around you which you can solve using tech. I recently mentioned it in my LinkedIn post as
Yeah,
well.
on your LinkedIn, yes, I was just thinking
Yes.
about it. The
So
farewell site.
exactly, yes. So you just sit down and think about a problem around you that you can solve using technology, like anything. As you know, in my case, it was recently we didn't get a farewell, so we need a website. So we need some platform wherein we can exchange our views. We can have a scribble sort of thing. And I thought of it, and I, along with a few friends, decided to make this platform, and we just made it. And so now I can add it on my resume. It took me around 7 days to make this whole platform, and I think it's a good project on my resume now. Similar was the case. I'll also tell about another project. When I started for preparing for my interviews, and I opened geeksforgeeks.com, and just because of the vast resources out there, I want something so that I go on a question and I read it. I want to make some notes around it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
probably I want to mark it as done or mark it as a doubt, something of that sort. So there was a problem that I found while using that website. Okay, this is something that can be improved. Now I want to think how I can improve on this. As an external person, I have no communication with Geek for Geeks. I want to make something external which can help you out on this website. So I decided to make a Chrome plugin that works, and all it does is it inserts a box on your Geeks for Geeks page, and you get an option to write a note about that question, save it uh, in your to-do list or mark it as a doubt. And then there's a portal independent to that where you can see what questions you have marked. You have some analytics, like over how many questions are you doing every day, and like a complete tracking system for Geeks for Geeks. So I made this while preparing for my interviews. So when you see a problem, you see how you solve it, and then you use your own solution to find out, okay, you have actually solved a problem. So try to think of projects as something you want to solve a problem, and then you will never have a hard time of thinking कि यार project में क्या बना है, what should we, how should we start with a project. I don't have any ideas, and all that thing. So project plays a very important role because uh, in the interviews, if you talk about projects, and the interviewer finds you actively, that you are actively learning something, that you have some creative mind, and
Problem
when you have that
solving.
problem solving, yes, question in yourself. So these are some qualities which a company finds good in their employees. So any interview would like to hire that person who has this in them. So next, I would like to elaborate on the student partner programs and all those that is going around.
The
I think
extracurricular mainly.
yeah, the extracurricular, and I think these are very recently that they have come into existence, and everybody is somehow a part of this. So I am a part of the Microsoft Partner Program since the last 4 years, and so while I was giving my interview at Microsoft, the interviewer was a very senior guy. Probably he was working for the company for the last 25 years. So when you work for a company for this long, you have a feeling attached to the company, right? So that guy was one sort of person who has this feeling for Microsoft and all. So when I told him that I am a Microsoft student partner, he didn't know anything about it. So he asked me, okay, what is it? Tell me about it. So my answer was that my sole purpose is to promote the use of Azure in my university by taking sessions and webinars and all this stuff. So I take regular sessions, and I told everything that we do as an MSP. Okay. So when
Mm-hmm.
he saw that, okay, so this person, a college student, has so much dedication towards the company he's working for, like he's actively into the promotion of the product that I am making for the interview, he might think that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there was a sense of attachment between us, and we had a common topic to discuss other than DS Algo or my projects. So we started discussion on my projects, where I used Azure and how it helped me in my life, right? So probably my interview went for 1.5 hours, and we it was not stressful at all. We had only one question about DS and Algo. Other than that, we just had a very open-ended discussion on this MSP program and how I'm doing in my college and everything. So these extracurricular help you create a connect with the interviewer and give you additional topics to talk upon, and also show what you actually are, like how active you will be in the company when you work for it. So everything that you do in your college is, counting towards your interview that you're going to do.
So ultimately, even kind of as a Microsoft student partner or any other company student ambassador, considering a lot of them have student ambassador programs, we are familiar with the ecosystem of the company, and that somehow impacts the conversation being carried out in the
Definitely,
interview.
definitely.
So there are a lot of conversational uh, questions, as one would call them, or maybe HR questions or behavioral questions, as they call it. So, how does one prepare for those, and how much do they count towards your
I
interview?
think in tech interviews they have a very low significance.
Mm-hmm.
I think they didn't even have a HR round in Microsoft with me. So we just had I just had a coding round, then we had a pen and paper round and 2 rounds of interviews, and that was it. So in most companies, if you make it to the HR round, you are probably selected. So 90% of the cases you are selected, and for the 10% cases, if you get rejected after the HR round, probably the performance of the previous round was the reason. So there's no, HR round is not usually the reason you get rejected in interviews. And
Mm-hmm.
coming to the questions, you have to be yourself in those questions. Don't try to act smarter than you are by saying things that, just to impress the HR or things. Because those are very trained psychologists and they know what you are thinking. And so the moment you try to start pretending things, they'll understand that you are not being yourself at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So when we build projects and everything, as we discussed just before this, there is always a group of people involved. As you said, it was around a bunch of people that even make the farewell website that you were talking about. So everybody has a very specific role to play in any project. So when sitting an interview and you're being asked about the project, do you should you already only talk about the part that you had to play, or is it a general discussion of the project? What would be a preferable swerve of the conversation that a candidate should take?
You should always have written on your resume about the project and the part you did on your resume. So
Okay.
even if you check out my LinkedIn post on the farewell website, I mentioned at the bottom that I worked on the backend on
With
PHP using Coordinator framework. So
okay.
if I'm sitting in an interview and I tell about the project, so obviously my interviewer will read out my resume first, and so he already knows that what was the part I worked on and how much contribution I did because I mentioned it on the resume. Other than that, you should open source your projects that you are showing on your resume because I was asked my GitHub profile link in an interview in SAP, and he probably opened up my GitHub in front of me while I was solving a question on his phone, just to check out, okay, what is my contribution in the projects that I've written on my resume. So you have to be clear out on what you did, and you just have to be answerable for your own part. It is not that you have to get the complete knowledge of how everything is functioning.
Hmm. Because I've seen a lot of people talk about the general idea of the project when they talk about the project. So I felt
I
like
think
that
if
was
you're
a
working on
necessary
if you're
question.
working, even if you're working on a team, you do have a general idea of the project. You have a fairly good idea about how everything is going on, but you should have a in-depth idea about your own part. That is all what matters.
So coming to your Microsoft uh, journey, because it was you already had an internship in hand from campus at SAP Labs, which is again one of the big names, right? So going into Microsoft and participating in TechSet Go, maybe we can start at the very beginning. How did you get to know about the competition, and how does one keep updated about such competitions?
So it was usual scrolling on LinkedIn, which made me aware of this competition that happened. And one thing that Microsoft does is it changes the name of this contest every year. That is something I got to know when it happened this year. And I had been telling everybody, okay, TechSet Go is the one you have to apply for in November. And this year they changed the name, I think, to I'm not sure what was the name, but they changed it from TechSet Go. And it happened in around October which was like earlier than when I had done it. So a lot of the students who read my blog and message me on LinkedIn. Okay, so we are waiting for TechSet Go. When will it happen? And they're messaging me in November or December when it has already happened. I'm like, okay, so we need to have some generalized post now. So TechSet Go changes its name, and it's not necessary what will be the name next year. But you have to be updated through, probably you check out the Microsoft Career site from October starting. You just have check out every other day, every third day probably. Just open the website and see when the new updates for on LinkedIn. New
Just just a second. There's some network issue again.
about the TechSet Go presentation. It happened in November.
Um, there's some lag and your video has frozen. Could you please check your
Yeah, is it
connection?
fine?
Yeah. Just a second. There was some network issues. Ronak is rejoining us in a minute.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible now?
There's still a certain lag.
I'm not sure why issue joining.
Yeah, that's all right. I guess I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is
Great. So where were we?
yeah. You were telling about how TechSite Go changes its name every year.
So they
So
changed its name every year. So I'll be informing about it on LinkedIn every time I get to know about it. So no worries on that. So coming to the process, we had a coding round in November, and so it had 3 questions, and it was on a metal platform, and it was, I think, 2 hours was the time duration for the test. It was, I would say, if you have done just the Microsoft previously asked question on Geeks for Geeks, you will be good to go for that test. It was not a very difficult test to do.
mm-hmm.
So once you do that in December, I received a mail in January that I had qualified for the next round, which was an interview, which was on campus in Hyderabad. uh, I went to Sydney for a Microsoft Student Partner Summit, which happens, which happens every year. This year it didn't happen because of the
Yeah.
COVID situation. But last year I went there, and while I was there, I received an email that my interview has been scheduled for, 5 days from then, and I had
Mhm.
to, I had my return flight in 2 days, so I literally had no time to prepare properly for my interview. But thanks to all the work that I've been doing throughout my college life, my projects, my student partner, and all of them, summed up and helped me, get over the interview. So coming to the interview process, it was at the Hyderabad main campus at Microsoft, and so once you go there, like this is very common in all Microsoft interviews. You have a coding round at first, and then you have a pen and paper round in which you have two questions given to everybody out there. So if there are 100 students giving the exam, there will be two common questions that everybody will be doing, and you have to write the code on pen and paper and also show that your code works using a suitable test case. So
Okay.
you have to also show the edge cases that you have handled and all that. So in this situation, what I would, you know, tell everybody to do is there are mentors that are, around you all the time who are ready to help you out if you're stuck in some problem while giving the test. And those are the ones who will check your test and, give you points that whether you will qualify for the next round or not. So whenever you are writing that answer, always consult a mentor and tell them your approach and ask them if this is the right approach. They will be very friendly and they'll be happy to help you even if you are doing wrong. They will tell you, okay, you're doing wrong, you can change the approach and you can do better. But in case you're doing right, and they get to know, they have an idea about who all they have mentored and who all have the right answer. So they know that, okay, they'll just see your sheet and they know I have seen this answer and this is right, so there's no need to check and you can just pass it on. So you will be qualified for the next round in such a way. So this is a general trick for all rounds which are pen and paper, which happen on campus or off campus anyway.
All right.
Coming to the next round, I was the first one to interview out of all the candidates out there. I don't know whether there was some order or something, but they called out my name for the first name was mine. So I went in there, and the first person was a pretty straightforward guy. So what I try to do is, so what happens in interview is that usually what you say, so they'll ask a question first to you, and you will have an answer. The next question will be based on what you answered the previous question. So
Mm-hmm.
if you say that if you're given a question on DSN algo and you say, okay, this answer can be optimized using this technique, so they'll go on asking about that technique and so on. So you have to pretty make sure whatever you speak in an interview, you should have complete knowledge about it. And in case
Mm-hmm.
you do not speak about it, because that's how it goes in all interviews.
They'll dig deeper if you
They'll dig
mention
deeper into
something.
things and even deviate from things according to what you say. So in that interview, we had the discussion only on DS and algo questions. He was a very straightforward. I just went in there. He gave me a question, like no discussion about my resume or anything. I was given a question, and after solving one, I was given another question. And the difficulty level again was not that difficult. Like all questions could be found on the Geeks for Geeks page for Microsoft, where you have those previously asked questions. So after that round, in around 5 to 10 minutes, I was told that I have qualified for the next round. And now this round was the one in which my Microsoft student partner experience helped me, and there was a senior guy. So I was given one question which I had solved recursively. It was a question of
Mm-hmm.
English, to which he told me that, okay, you have done it right, but you can improve the complexity by using a iterative approach. And I asked for some time. The best part about interviews, you can ask for as much time as you want. There's no delay. So what happens in an exam scenario is that you are always under pressure of the timing, right? So you have that, okay, timer will stop, and most of the times you are not able to think because of the pressure the timer is creating on you. So in an interview, you have to forget that there's a timer on you or anything, because that is the thing that will help you lessen the pressure on you to solve that question. So you can ask him that, okay, I need some time to solve it, and he'll just start doing his own work while you solve your answer. So there's nobody looking at you how you are doing, what you are trying to do. But even if nobody is not, once you figure out a basic approach and you are still away from the answer, you have to discuss it with the interviewer. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking, because in case you are wrong at an earlier stage, he will tell you that you are wrong. So it will save a lot of time for you. So once that round was done, we had a huge discussion on the MSP thing and everything. And immediately after that, in around 10 to 15 minutes, I was told that I'm selected. So that was the moment I realized, yeah, this is done, and now I'll be interning at Microsoft. So
Dream
it
come
wasn't,
true, maybe. I
yeah,
mean,
dream
for
come
me, that would definitely be a dream come true.
definitely. So that was February, and then I started my internship in on 29th of May, which was a 2 month long internship at Microsoft Bangalore. And at the end, I received my offer letter for joining full time as well.
So, how was the internship experience at Microsoft? If you could briefly describe it.
So
Um,
the internship experience, I must say, it was phenomenal. The office is great, the team is great. You get to work with the best developers out there, and the best part is you're working on something so huge, which is creating a like such a large impact on everybody in the world. Since everybody using Microsoft and softwares which Microsoft builds, you get a feeling of achievement that you are doing something good for the people, for everybody out there. So it is definitely something you must have experience with once in your life.
Working as a small part of a small cog in a bigger machine, as they say.
Definitely, yes, yes.
So I think mainly I've discussed everything that has to do with interviews and internship interview preparations. There's just this one thing that I'd mentioned in the introduction, and you'd also mentioned that hackathons do work as a good way of going about building projects and everything. So how does one go looking for hackathons, or how do you stay updated on hackathons? Any platforms that you would recommend?
So you must be an active part of some communities, like even Microsoft Student Partner is a community. There's IUSD as a community. There are a lot of communities that exist and help you stay updated in everything. I used to get my information from Facebook. There are a lot of Facebook groups, Hackathon Hackers, Hackathon Hackers India. Then you have a lot of updates on hacker.com, and
Mm-hmm.
you just have to scout for hackathons. At one point of time, and once you start scouting for it, your email ID is everywhere, and whenever somebody starts a hackathon, they might have your email ID, and you might start receiving random emails from hackathon organizers as well. So
Uh-huh.
once you have a community, you have a network on Facebook or Twitter of the people who are actively participating in hackathons. You will eventually find out from those people what are the next hackathons they are going to, so that you can register for those as well. So one of the best hackathons I have ever attended was Hack the North in University of Waterloo, and we won the Microsoft AI prize there, and we had people coming in from Seattle, from and the Vancouver Microsoft area, like the people from Microsoft from this area, and I told them that I was a Microsoft student partner. So even like those people had also managed the MSPs of those area at one point of time, so they knew everything about the program and how it functions, and were pretty impressed by what I was doing in my project. So again, that sense of having something common between you helps everywhere. Helps you everywhere.
Creates a semblance of connection. So,
Yeah.
hackathons, not only, as you said, you met people from Seattle and Vancouver while you were in Canada for Hack the North. So, hackathons not only serve as a means for you to build projects or maybe come up with ideas, they also primarily serve as a means to meet new people and form connections. You're muted.
Yeah. Am I audible now? Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, definitely hackathons serve as a good medium to network as well. So initially, I didn't find networking as such a good thing to do, and I used to go to hackathons, sit alone at a corner, and just code and make something great. But eventually, I realized that it should not be the only thing you do in a hackathon, because uh, when you go on in life and you have to search for jobs and internships, and you see that the only thing you have done in hackathons is making products, but you have to showcase them to the people and let others know that you exist, and you're doing a great work so that you can be hired. As I told about my friend also, he started making networks on Twitter and in developer conferences. So once you have that network, you have people that who are working for these companies and doing great stuff just like you will definitely somehow get an advantage from them, and probably get a job offer or an internship offer or anything of that sort. So it will help you a lot in those ways. So you go to hackathons, you post about that on LinkedIn that you're attending this, so that others who are also in this hackathon get to know about you. You meet people, and eventually somehow sometime those connections will help you out in life.
Networking is a major aspect of just building yourself uh,
Yeah,
in the
totally.
community. Yeah. I think that is it for the questions from my end. There was just one question from the audience when we were discussing what people should do after their second year. And you'd mentioned for people in tier one and tier two colleges and people in aiming for off campus internships. So there was a question that what about people from tier one or tier two colleges from a non computer science branch? What should they do in their
So if you need to analyze what happens with your branches in your college. So if you're from a branch um, whose the companies which come on your campus, they open for your branch in case, then you should prepare for those companies. But if not, then again follow the same approach of doing internships. So the only point of not preparing for internship at this in the summer break is if you do not have any interviews lined up in August. So in case you do have interviews lined up in August, then you should prepare for interviews and leave everything aside. In case you do not, then do some internship or some projects, and prepare for interviews after that, because off-campus process usually start in December end. I remember the off-campus process for Amazon. It happened in May. Like the time of joining is May, right? So it happened in the first week of May, and those selected had joined in the last week of May. So it happens as late
very
as
short notice? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But for
So,
some, it is a short notice. But you also see that it might be a lucky charm for those who had lost the hope of getting an internship by May, and then suddenly this opportunity strikes and they get an internship at Amazon, right? So
mhm.
that is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, so like one shouldn't lose hope very soon. You can actually
Definitely.
get an internship in the summer for the summer.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I mean that is one thing that just came to my mind. A lot of the times when we're going for interviews or even sitting online tests and all of that, there is a certain sense of pressure associated with it, specifically in campus interviews when there's a limited number of companies that are coming in. So you have that pressure that I have to crack this particular place or I wouldn't have any other chances and all of that. So how do you deal with such pressure, and how do you suggest one should deal with pressure in general and also just before interviews when somebody's going through an episode of nerves and everything, how they should proceed? Yeah.
So I would say that internship interviews are pretty safe, because you will have a complete set of opportunities for placements afterwards. So even if you are not able to crack some interview during your internship interviews, you have a second option left, that is the placement interview. So, and you need to learn from every failure of yours. It's not a very easy thing to do, probably an easy thing for me to say at the moment, because uh, I was when I cracked SAP on campus, I was not allowed to sit for any other companies later on, and Microsoft was the only thing I did off campus, right? But for
Mm-hmm.
all those, I have experience from my friends who were able to crack companies later on in their experience in their interview processes. So eventually, everybody landed up somewhere good, and it takes time. You have to be patient. You have to not let failures let you down. And sometimes you do, like, after getting a failure from an interview, you stop studying that ab to nahi hoga mera. So that is not what you do. You have to stay persistent, and till the day you get an internship offer, or a placement offer for that say. That is the thing that matters, because even some, like, it happens sometimes that good companies do come late in the placement season. So you have to stick to your plan of studying. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just for a second. I was having some network issues. Please continue, sir. Sorry. So
So
we have two other questions.
yeah.
One says, how do we know we're ready to sit an interview? I've solved hundreds of questions, I've developed an approach, but there are always new problems that come up.
So you're not ever ready to sit for an interview. You always keep on practicing, and when an interview comes up, you go to an interview with your current experience. So you do maximum questions, because the more you practice, the more you will be able to do a newer question when asked in an interview, right? So it is like integration. I related a lot with integration that we studied in class 12. That whenever a new question comes, the probability of not solving that question is I think equal to solving that question. But if you have more experiences in solving questions, you might end up, like, if you have a new question, you might relate to an older question and solve it the same way to get an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no stopping that, okay, now I'm done with my preparation. You never stop. You just keep on doing it, and you sit for interviews when the time comes for the interview. There's no, you have to be at your max, at your best all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's true. There's another question we have from Shivang Agrawal. It says, is it good to list the projects we worked on at an internship, especially if it is not open source due to the company policies?
You should not list it as your projects. You should list it as your work experience on your resume, because that is not your project. That is the company's project, not yours.
Mm-hmm. Another question we have is from Ved Gupta. How do we know which companies should we sit for so that it does not stop us from sitting in other interviews in the future?
And that is a very tricky question. So what happened with me, I would like to elaborate on this. So we had a Microsoft test on campus on, I think, 23rd of July. And so I gave that exam, and same pattern, 3 questions, 2 hours, and I was able to do all of those. But you do not get to know the result, like, just immediately after the test. So the
Mm-hmm.
result for those Microsoft tests was to come after 10 days. So I had this 10 days period wherein, if I was able to crack a company in between, I would not be eligible to sit for Microsoft. So after the test, on the next day we had SAP test on campus, and obviously we have that pressure that you just mentioned. What if I'm not able to crack any company further? I should not leave any company, and just because of that pressure, I sat for the SAP test. I cleared it, and, like, there was a short list of 7 people. So in my batch, there are around 2,000 people, like, overall.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to the top 7 is a big deal, right? If any company
Definitely.
comes. So I
Yeah.
had this in mind that we have such a huge batch strength, and I have made it to the interview now. I have a very high probability of being selected and all. So I talked to a lot of seniors as well. A lot of them recommended me not to sit for the company, because they thought that I am prepared for a much better company, like, with my level of preparation. But I just said to everybody, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to sit for this company. And I sat for SAP, and I cleared it. And I do regret sitting for that interview at that time, because I think
The
that
problem you happened.
I could have cleared a better company after that immediately. Probably Microsoft, Adobe, Amazon, a lot of good companies came after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you're sitting for your internship, right, one thing that you have to make sure is you have to see whether this company is a good fit for you. If you have to work there full time. So internship is like a 2 month experience, right? But
True.
what you get at the end of internship is a pre-placement offer. And once you get that, you are again ineligible to sit for on-campus opportunities. So whenever you have some internship interview, you look out what is the offer that the company is giving for full timers, and you
Mm-hmm.
read out on Glassdoor what are the reviews for the company, working conditions, what the employees say, and everything. And if you feel that okay, this company offers a good package, and I would like to work in this company full time as well, only then sit for that interview. Otherwise, it's a very tough decision, but you should leave that company where, like that interview where you don't want to work full time.
Mm-hmm. That's that's a very tough decision to make, specifically given all the.
Yes, exactly.
Um, Thank you. I guess that's all for the questions from the audience as well. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and for all your for sharing your experience and advice. It's been great. I have learned a lot from this. I will be sitting my own internship interviews coming August and forward. So I think I'll be going back to the stream and watching it twice or thrice. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Simon, for this, and all the best for your interviews.
Thank you. Thanks to all our audience for joining us today. And please do share the session with everyone. I think all your peers and friends will find it really helpful. And you can reach out to Ronak on LinkedIn, as he mentioned. He's pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you have any doubts,